Let's bring in Republican strategist and Miami GOP committeewoman Angie Wong and Democratic strategist Madeline Summerville. Thank you to both for being here on this new year, a new era in New York City, if you will. Now comes the governing, as CB just put it. There was a fascinating op-ed in the New York Post. It's really rather scathing, actually, from Tuesday. Being in the state legislature has prepared him only to recite leftist nostrums without having a clue about how the real world works. His glib rhetoric, spiced with anti-Semitism and a roster of dicey aides, illustrate that he doesn't understand how fragile public safety and the economy are. Most alarming, Mamdani appears oblivious to the clear possibility that his pie-in-the-sky policies could produce versions of the fiscal and crime crises the city suffered through. Angie, I want to start with you because this addresses a lot of the things that Republicans were so concerned about when his sort of meteoric rise happened and this remarkable campaign got underway. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and I think Michael Goldwyn is right to say this, and I agree with him because New York City and anyone who's lived in New York long enough, we've seen this movie before in the 1970s and the 1990s when the city was bankrupt and we had to fire teachers and we had to fire police officers. This can't happen again, and I hope Mamdani, although he's very young, I hope he can learn from the mistakes of past mayors and learn not to do this again. But his woke policies and his, give everything for free for everyone, that is going to bankrupt the cities. And you can already tell he's looking to pull federal funds. That's why he met with President Trump. I don't know if President Trump's going to really play that way. So I would like to see him actually have a balanced budget to take things out of the woke theories and actually apply it into a busy city like New York. We want him to succeed. We do not want him to fail. As much as Republicans would love the talking points going into the midterms and thereafter, we would want to see him actually succeed because New York City is a financial capital of the world. We cannot have this fail.
Madeline, Mayor Mamdani, day one, will he prove the naysayers wrong?
I think you will. And I'd love to address a few of the points that were written in the article. So first of all, in terms of anti-Semitism, as a Jewish person myself, I have very much enjoyed watching him enjoy a Shabbat meal with Mandy Patinkin. I loved watching him celebrate Hanukkah with the Chabadnik rabbis in New York City. His heart is in the right place. And I think President Trump saw that when he went to go meet with him in person. So maybe perhaps the Republicans should take a page out of President Trump's book and say, hey, maybe we were overreacting, or maybe we were assuming things incorrectly because of his race or religion. I think when it comes to his fiscal and safety policies, I understand that people are concerned, but my understanding is that actually he's kept on the chief of police that was in New York prior to him under Eric Adams, who's done a fantastic job clamping down on crime in general, and that he's not going to get rid of any police officers. There's a ton of misinformation out there about Mamdani, and I think the reason why people love him is because he tells the truth, and I think that he comes off as honest and genuine, and I think that he will deliver on those promises once he's given the opportunity.
All right, let's look ahead real quick. Broader across 2026, 2028, the broader number of Democrats. Here's Bill Maher, notably talking about a strategy that he doesn't believe is going so well. Take a listen.
It is a phenomenon we have never seen before.
Right.
That one person would dominate
every
just the
conversation,
national
every dinner
for over a decade.
Yeah.
But I do think you have to fight that. Like I say, if that's your whole personality, is the first thing out of your mouth is, what are we going to do about Donald Trump? I just can't. I can't.
Angie, do you agree with him? Do you think there's just too much focus on one individual and what Trump means to the Democratic Party?
I mean, even Democrats are sick of hearing that Trump is bad. Look, this is from the same playbook from 2016, 2020, 2024. Their entire identity is wrapped around Trump is the bad orange man. It's an old rhetoric now, and they're all tired of it. They actually, Democrats and Republicans alike want to see maybe a positive, a hopeful message coming out from the Democrat Party. They want a unifying message that talks about, oh, get this, issues. And that's something that, they've never been able to go on for the last couple of years and really convince not only voters, but donors that they can actually deliver on a winning message. And that's what we saw in the last quarter. The DNC had a dismal fundraising quarter, and they have a lot of challenges for the midterms coming up. So if they don't get their messaging right, they don't get their leadership right, and they don't get off this I hate Trump vote, they're not going to win.
Madeline, your thoughts on that?
I agree with Angie. And it's because I, as a commentator, don't have Trump derangement syndrome that I've been able to make friends with people like Angie. I think that left-wing media has lost a tremendous amount of credibility because they haven't been able to give credit where credit is due. And I think that once they start doing that, certain networks have begun doing that, they're going to earn some people's trust back. But for now, they don't have the trust of a lot of people who ended up switching parties in order to vote for Trump, who either were independent or Democratic before. I think when it comes to making this their whole personality, yeah, I mean, people are quite annoyed with it on all sides. And I think that when it comes to moving forward, the reason why Mamdani was so successful was because he gave people a vision. He didn't just say, I don't like things. He said, I'm going to give you a view of what your life is going to feel like when you don't have to pay for childcare, when you don't have to worry about the bus getting there on time, and when you don't have to worry about going hungry. You have to be able to give people a vision. That's why Barack Obama was so successful. And until we do that, we are not going to succeed. And just going off of general Mamdani policies isn't going to work.
Madeline Summerville, Angie Wong, thank you both very much. It'll be interesting to see how much Mamdani and reflections of Mamdani play in the midterms and in the next election. Really grateful for you both. Happy New Year. Thanks.
Happy New Year.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.